The other day, Cliff comes, he snuggles next to me, and he puts his arm around me. He's like, I love you, Mommy. And I go, thank you so much. I love you too. And he goes, you sure there's not a baby in there? And I'm like, aw, you little shit.
Welcome to the War for Men podcast. I'm your host, Chris Moore, and this episode is sponsored, as always, by Silver Peak Plumbing. Today, we're going to hear from someone who was a part of one of the hardest things a family can go through, and got to watch closely as a man went through the toughest battle of his life. This is Megan Shepard. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing really good. So I'm really excited. Megan's one of my best friends growing up, and today we're going to be hearing her perspective on her husband's battle with cancer, who is Mitch, one of our founders. So I'd like to start from the very, very beginning.
Very beginning.
Very beginning. How did you meet your husband?
Well, in typical Utah Latter-day Saint fashion, we met in a singles ward, and I had just recently at that time had decided I had just come out of like a pretty bad depressive episode myself. And so I was like, I'm not going to worry about like dating. I'm not going to worry about, meeting anybody or anything. I'm just going to focus on getting myself better, focus on school. Cause the semester before I had to take 2 incompletes, which it's not a failing grade. It's just a non-grade. And then you have a year from that time to make up the credits and whatever. So I was like, I'm just going to focus on school, focus on getting those incompletes taken care of. I'm not going to do anything. And then he moved into the ward, and I remember seeing him and thinking, he's cute. Oh, well. I just, like, there was nothing. I didn't think anything was ever going to happen in that.
Just some eye candy at that point.
Yeah. Why not?
Nice. Well, yeah. How did you decide that, okay, he maybe is an option?
So his cousin had moved into the area about 6 months before he did. He followed her out here. And so I had already kind of had a little bit of a rapport with her, was talking with her, friends with her a little bit, which later I found out her and her roommates were telling him, like, you should date anybody in the ward, except for this one person, but anybody else is fine. You could date anybody else. He went on one date with one other person. I was like, nah. He went out with me, and that was that.
That was that.
That was that.
Yeah.
Pretty much right off the bat.
I was around during that time, but very much in my own world. And so,
well, you were still a newlywed pretty much at that point.
So it just in my own world. And
yeah.
So, once you guys started dating, what did you see in this guy that became your husband?
Well, it's become a joke. It wasn't a joke at that time, but it's become a joke because my grandfather was an electrician. And so my whole family's like, oh, of course, Megan would end up with an electrician. Like, that tracks. What was it for me? I don't know. I loved his devotion to his family. He was very family oriented from the very beginning with his family. I was just watering. I'm not crying, I promise.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah. Just a very peaceful presence. Like, I felt safe and I felt comfortable around him. There was never any question of, like, what is he going to expect next? Or there was never any expectation of, oh, well, it's the third date or whatever. I don't know. Up until him, anytime I dated somebody, I would be like, oh, now this is the one, right? Is this the one? How about this one? Is this the one? Nope, not that. Okay. But with him, I never questioned it. It just felt easy and natural. And I always made fun of people when they'd be like, oh, when you know, you know. And I'm like, no, the hell you don't. You know nothing about that person. We moved fairly quickly. So we met in June of 2016 was when he moved into the area. We went on our first date September of 2016. We had decided that we were getting married by December. Ring was on my finger in January, married in May. So pretty quick. I think our engagement was longer than our like courtship or whatever you want to call it. Like I said, I always made fun of people when they would be like, oh, when you know, I'm like, no, you don't. And then I was like, oh,
yeah,
I see.
It was really interesting for me. I remember meeting him and just, I think because we grew up together. We just consider each other family. I call you my cousin to this day.
Yep.
And I was just so naturally just had that protective, like I just want to make sure you're taken care of, right? And then I think you even made fun of me at the time because I remember just being like, oh, like you found like a real man. Like it was, I was so happy because I've known it's, some of her exes in the past, and I just wanted to make sure, one of the women in my life was taken care of.
Right.
And so I was excited about that. And yeah, it was just never felt, it didn't feel like it wasn't supposed to just be this way.
Yeah. It did feel, I don't want to say unnatural, but it was like, is this really, like, is it this easy? Is this how it's supposed to go? Is this how? And I remember, and he would do like little things. He's just so kind-hearted. About like a week or two after we started dating, like we had only been on 3 dates, is when my grandfather passed away. And I remember my friends were like, oh, are you going to tell Mitch? And I'm like, this is not how to lose a guy in 10 days. I'm not going to come out right out the gate with this. But that was, he ended up texting me like the next day, and I had already got tickets to go back to California for my grandpa's services and everything. And he was like, hey, do you want to go out on Friday? And I was like, oh, I work on Friday. I'm sorry. And he's like, what about Saturday? And I was like, I actually am working on Saturday too. And he's like, okay, how about Monday? And I was like, I'm leaving for California. I was like, I swear I want to go out with you. It's not like I'm trying to avoid you. And he's like, okay, how about breakfast Saturday morning? Like he was very persistent, but not in like a creepy, like,
yeah,
no, like I said no way. And so, that breakfast we went and had Neder's French toast and just chatted. He's like, so what are you going out of town for? I'm like, oh, my grandpa. And he's like, oh, my grandpa passed away a couple years ago and we were really close too. And so we just kind of like bonded over our relationships with our grandparents, our grandfathers. And that's when I learned like, oh, my grandpa was an electrician. Hey, my grandpa was an electrician. And we just kind of talked from there. And then while I was in California, he like called and texted throughout just to like, hey, just checking in, seeing how you're doing, how you feeling. And I was like, I'm good, thanks. Like, just like, I was like, this guy's so nice. Like, it's just so sweet. And he ended up calling me before I was supposed to come back. And he was like, when are you going to be home? And I was like, oh, I'll be home Sunday night or whenever. And he was like, cool. You want to go see a movie with me on Tuesday? And I'm like, it's Thursday. Like, this couldn't have waited until I got home. And I was like, yes, I would love to go on a date with you. Like, it would be great. And we were together every day since then. But then like in the time that we dated, like one of my roommates, her grandpa passed away and he made us dinner, and which was very kind. So nice of him. It was like
not good.
It was so spicy.
Oh.
He took like frozen burritos and like made them into like an enchilada casserole type thing, but he dumped a ton of like hot enchilada sauce and stuff on it. And we were like, me and my roommates were like tearing up. We were like, this is so hot. But we were very thankful that he did it. And it was just very sweet of him because he didn't have to do that. The apartment I lived in at the time, that it was always freezing in there. And like we nicknamed it the ice box. And it was September, October, and it was still warm. And I was talking to him about how cold the apartment was. And a couple days later, he's like, hey, are you home? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, I'm going to come drop something off really quick. And I was like, okay. And he came and brought me an electric blanket. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then like, thank you. And when I was like telling coworkers about this, one of my coworkers was like, that's not real. Guys don't do that. No, he doesn't. And I was like, well, I wouldn't have thought it was real either, but here we are. So I just saw it, you know, his love for his family, his kindness, and his genuine care for others in general. Like, I was just like, this is a good guy.
Yeah. How did he ask you? So you said you kind of decided you were going to get married before he even asked you.
Yes. So I had been trying to drop hints just to make sure we were on the same page. Like, wasn't necessarily saying we needed to like set a date, but just that we were both on the same track. Like, we wanted to get married eventually, right? Like, that's what you want to do, right? And so I'd be like, oh, did you hear that these people got engaged? Or, oh, oh, this wedding is coming up. And he'd be like, and like immediately like change the subject. And I was just like, this dude does not. I was like, either he is dense as hell or he's not interested. It was, I don't know how spiritual Ironhide gets, but I'm going to get into the spiritual side.
Yeah.
I was praying one night and I was like, I just need a conversation to open up. I just need a dialogue with him just to make sure that we are on the same wavelength as far as where this is going. I was like, because I'm deep. It's already going to hurt if it doesn't work out. So, you know, I'd rather cut it off now than go further into this relationship. And I was like, so if you could just help us open up a conversation about it, I'd really appreciate that. Thanks. And the next night we were at Temple Square. Some of his, like an aunt and uncle and some cousins were visiting. We were like, oh, we wanted to go get pictures over by the temple. And his cousin, he was like, hey, Meg, where do you want to go? And I was like, the temple. And he goes, I think that's everybody's goal, but where do you want to take your picture? And we were just like, ha. Like, I didn't even, like, it didn't register as anything. And they had to cut. And we were like, there's plenty of people that can take a picture for us. You guys don't have to be there. It's fine. So they left and we kept walking. And he's like, it's a funny joke he said, isn't it? And I was like, sure. I was like, but was it a joke? And he goes, well, he goes, when we go to California to visit your family, I'm going to ask your mom if I can marry you. And I was like, huh? What?
I'm sure you made that exact noise too. That's a very classic Megan sound.
Pretty much. I was like, oh. And in my head, I was like, I asked for a conversation, not a proposal, but I'm like, not going to say no. And so I was just like, what? Yeah, okay. You want to marry me? Why do you want to marry me? He's like, did you just ask me why? And I'm like, genuinely, I don't get it. And so I just was it was very, like, I wasn't expecting it because we hadn't had any conversation up to that point about that specifically. But so, yeah, that was December. And we were like, all right. And was it like a day or two later, we made set the date and everything. Like, we had the date set before we were like officially engaged.
It is very Utah. It's very Utah.
Yeah. Don't love that about myself, but it is what it is.
Worked out. Early marriage. This was still before Mitch was an electrician.
Yes.
So you're newly married.
Woof.
Figuring it out. How was that?
So, engagement, when we were engaged, he was a cashier at Rite Aid and I was a waitress. Eventually, in that time frame, he left Rite Aid and he was a maintenance guy at a hotel in Provo. We were a maintenance guy and a waitress. Our schedules were very opposite of each other for a little while. I mean, marriage is just, especially in the beginning, is just rough in general because you're figuring each other out. You're figuring out temperaments and ideas and things. Like the things we got in arguments about were like whether or not we'd put the utensils in a thing on the counter or in a drawer, and like things like that. Just so like minuscule, ridiculous arguments or conversations. But at the same time, we lived in this tiny little 1-bedroom apartment in Provo. You had to like walk through our bedroom to get to our bathroom, and the kitchen counter, including the sink, was probably about as big as this table. Just this tiny little thing. And so, yeah, it wasn't like, it was hard because I worked usually from about 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock-ish. And he worked from 3 to 11 to 12-ish. I would try to wait up for him, but sometimes I'd be asleep, and then I'd leave before he woke up, and just very opposite schedules. And it felt weird for a while because I was like, I thought, you have this idea of what marriage is supposed to be or what you want it to be, and it's not. When it's not exactly that way, you're like, what's wrong? Is it me? Is it him? Is it us? Is it like, what did we do? But ultimately, I look back at that time and I was like, oh, that stupid little house with our little, we had a little coffee table that we would sit. That's where we would eat dinner together, and sit on the floor, sit on the couch and eat dinner at the coffee table because there wasn't room for a table, and building little candy walls out of the candy Legos, and watching like Western movies when we were sick, and just all these little things, like fun little moments, but definitely hard. We definitely had to work through some stuff, but did our thing.
It's those moments, those early things, and they are hard and they feel that. And then, you think back on them and you're like, it was kind of nice to have those kind of responsibilities though, compared to what we do now. And
for real though.
It's just wild where just looking back on those things. In that apartment, you also had your first child, correct?
No.
Or was that a different place?
That was our next apartment.
Okay.
We moved we sold our contract because we were like, we gotta get out of Provo, man. Oh, it was not for us.
Oh, that's right. Your other place was in Orem. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, how dare you not remember every single one of my apartment moves. We did get pregnant with our first very soon after we moved. We moved into our new apartment April 1st, and I was pregnant by the end of the month.
Was that a conscious decision to have the child?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because we did decide like we were technically trying to have a baby. Mm-hmm. But no, because I wasn't expecting it to happen so quickly.
Yeah, you guys are show-offs.
Sorry.
I wanted to ask about that because you talked about your grandfather too, and that was really the closest thing you had to a father, because your father was essentially not in the picture. And so I wanted to hear, your perspective on, because that's got to be, assuming as a woman, having gone through that, and then now having a husband, picking someone that's going to be the father, that is a touchy subject, especially for you, and just picking somebody that's going to be that for your child.
Jokingly but seriously say, I'm like, my father gave me a great gift in showing me exactly what I didn't want in a husband or a father for my children. I knew I wanted someone who was going to be faithful in every aspect. I wanted someone who was going to be loyal. I wanted someone who was going to be steadfast and reliable and, all the things that you would hope a man would be. I did have that example with my grandpa. You knew my grandfather, but, his family was everything to him. He loved his wife. He loved his children, and he loved his grandchildren. It's a common conversation topic is, Grandpa would love your kids. Do you know how much Grandpa loved your babies? Anyway. And so, my grandpa's faith and his loyalty and his love for his family was a big example to me of like, this is what good man should be like. Mitchell, like I said in the beginning, was like he from the beginning talked about like how much he loved his family, and he talked about his loyalty was to his family and how he wanted to protect his family and how someday when he has his own family. And I was like, so it fit in my head. And then just our, on paper, the way we grew up, very different. It doesn't seem like we should be compatible. I feel like
opposites attract.
Very much so. But we have very similar personalities. Like we have the same sense of humor and like we enjoy the same movies. Well, generally speaking, we enjoy the same movies and stuff. So, we just have fun.
Yeah, that's brings me right into what I just wanted to get into next, because what happened after, and what's the aftermath is still going on with the cancer, but just sounds like life before cancer was still hard, like anyone, like just normal.
Of course. Yeah.
But just life before cancer.
It's life before cancer. Exactly. Like it's so ignorance is bliss is like the putting it lightly, because we were just doing our thing, and we had our first, and then eventually we had our second, and everything was good. I still kick myself a little bit about it. I think it was like 2 years before the actual cancer diagnosis when we went to urgent care. 2 or 3 years. Yeah. He had coughed up a bunch of blood. He was like, Megan, like, I think I need to go to the doctor. And I'm like, if you're saying we need to go to the doctor, then we better be going to the doctor. I asked my neighbor, I'm like, hey, can you watch Cliff for me so we can go to this urgent care? They took an x-ray and they were like, so how much blood? And I was like, seemed like a decent enough blood that we're here to be concerned about it. And they were like, well, there's nothing on the x-ray. It's probably just micro tears in the back of your throat, like from coughing so hard. I was like, are you sure? Because that was a lot of blood for micro tears. It was probably like a tablespoon worth of blood. I don't know. And they were like, yeah, there's nothing there. We don't see anything. And we were just like, okay. And just kind of, and so when I say I can kick myself, it's like, I should have been like, no. Run something else, do something else, because it's not normal. But of course, hindsight's 2020. We didn't know, because I've said it a million times before. Is like I'm like I kind of figured that eventually at some point we would deal with cancer, just because of life in general. Both of our families have cancer history, and I was like, yeah, I always kind of figured we'd deal with cancer eventually, but not when we were 30. Not now. But, he would continue. He'd have little coughing attacks, and he'd be like, oh, had some more micro tears. And I'm like, okay. And like I said, that went on for like 2 or 3 years. And it wasn't like every day. It wasn't super frequent, but it was enough that we noticed it. Because it's like, I don't know.
So what led to further investigation?
I actually can track it, because it was before COVID that first initial urgent care was. So like 2019-ish sometime. Because then COVID happened. We both got it at some point. Who didn't? After he had COVID, his breathing started becoming a little more labored. And so he went to the doctor, and they were like, oh, you probably just have asthma. Like, everything seems like, because it was just very, very like wheezy. They were like, COVID gave you asthma. That's crazy. And so for like a year, we were just kind of going off on, inhalers or whatever. And he would cough, and there'd be a little bit of blood every once in a while. And finally, it was towards the end of 2022. Yeah, because our second had just turned 1. So it was 2022 was I get a call from him. He's like, hey, can you make me a doctor's appointment? And I'm like, sure, what's going on? So I can like tell them. He goes, I just coughed up a lot of blood. Like that was a concerning amount of blood. And I was like, okay, done deal. And so I called and, you know, the poor little receptionist, she's like, and what's the reason for the visit? And I'm like, well, my husband's coughing up blood. And so she's like, you know, she's like, I can make this appointment for him, but his doctor is actually the on-call doctor for urgent care today. So he can just walk in and see him today if he wanted to. And I was like, keep the appointment just in case, but I will talk to him about it. And so I call him and I'm like, okay, so I made an appointment. It's in like 2 weeks, but you could go in tonight when you get home. And he's like, that's fine. I'll just go in 2 weeks. And I was like, all right. And then I just felt so strong. I was like, no, this shouldn't wait. And so when he got home, I was like, and we live across the street from the urgent care that he was going to go to. And so I was like, I really think you need to go. Like, worst case scenario, it's nothing, but this shouldn't be waited on anymore. And so that was the catalyst. And
first of all, we're very grateful for you ladies and your gut feelings and your, because they're usually always right. After that, after you went and had the appointment, the couple days it took to get results back, I want to go to that moment where you got some news, where you found out something at least.
I don't know if it really hit me at first. I don't know if that was denial or just kind of like what are the odds? But I think it was a couple days after that we got the call and the doctor was like, yeah, we see a little spot. So we want you to come get an MRI so we can get a more detailed image and see what we're looking at. And so we were like, okay, well, a spot, like, what does that mean? Like, and my husband, bless his heart, is the king of going to the worst case scenario every time. And he's like, yep, doctor says it's a tumor. And I'm like, hey, hold on. He just said there was a spot. Let's wait for a second, you know? And so we set up the appointment, got the MRI. And about a week after that, which was a week before Christmas, was when they were like, it's definitely a mass, a tumor of some sort. We just don't know what it is. That was, quite honestly, like, to look back at that moment was it's very blurry to me, because I was still like, but it could not be, it still couldn't, like, it might not be cancer, right? Like, why would it be cancer? And why is it on your lung? You're 30 and you don't smoke or drink or anything. Like, there's nothing. We actually went out to his family's for Christmas that year, and we knew there was a tumor. We just didn't know what it was yet. I just remember feeling unsure. Like, what does this mean? What's next? What is, you know? But I had to keep telling myself that it was going to be okay. It had to be okay. I had a almost 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. Like, it had to be okay.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until the doctor, once he was like, it's a mass, we need to get you in to see somebody. He got us in with an oncologist, like, immediately. It was like January 4th, we saw an oncologist. And then by the end of January, we were in a pulmonologist's office and scheduled for a biopsy. And so up until then, it was very like, I was very much hoping and crossing my fingers for, it's benign, but it's in the way. So we still need to do something about it, but
right.
But you're fine, ultimately, you know? And so I remember his family, they had all the priesthood holders in the family give him a prayer or give him a blessing. And then he got up and joined the circle, and they all gave me a blessing, just of peace, of comfort, of, you know, we're all here to help in whatever way needs to be done. The Lord loves you, blah, blah, blah. And I just kept feeling overwhelmingly like, would I like it to be one thing versus the other? Absolutely. But either way, it's going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
Is that something you just felt naturally, just positively, or was it something you felt the need to, like, I have to hold it together for us?
Oh, absolutely. Fast forward a little bit, like go ahead of the story a little bit. But after everything was said and done, after the surgery, after he was okay and everything was, we were all set, I had a full-blown panic attack. I don't even remember what he said, but my son said something to me that for whatever reason triggered this reaction in me. And I shut down and just like couldn't breathe, start like sobbing, crying, couldn't hold myself up. I could feel it coming on, and I texted him immediately because we had neighbors over in our yard doing a little bonfire, and I was like having a panic attack and then just like collapsed. I think my brain had like broken at some point, was like, you don't have to be strong anymore. You don't have to hold it together anymore. You don't have to be brave anymore. You can release. There's that. But going back to that initial, like, everything's going to be okay, is I think there was part of me that was like, I have to keep telling myself this, otherwise I will lose it. But also I really did just feel like it was going to be okay. And after every appointment we had, after like bad news after bad news we got, we both felt the feeling of it's going to be okay. And we were getting real frustrated there for a minute. We were like, when is the okay happening? Because it doesn't feel okay right now. Spoiler, everything's okay.
Now knowing where you were at that point, as far as being strong, Megan, holding it together, not only for yourself, but for your family, for your kids, for your husband, as a wife, as someone that, because so many of us unfortunately know what it's like to have a family member go through cancer, have cancer, but being someone that, like, as a spouse, we know Mitch, we know the person he was, we know how much you love him, we know this person that defined what a good man was supposed to be for you. Watching him go through that, what was that like?
That was hard because he is very, which I know Ironhide is trying to help with this in general, but the stereotypical man of, no, I don't need help, I got this. I'm fine, I don't need to go to the doctor, I got this. I don't want to do this, I got this. I don't need to ask for help, I got this. So seeing him and truly also going back to, when everything happened, like, it all happened really fast. So, like I said, we were told officially that it was a tumor like the week before Christmas of 2022. We were in to see an oncologist January 4th. Mid-January, we were with the pulmonologist. End of January, we had the biopsy. Beginning of February, we were told it was cancer and what cancer it was. Mid-February, we were meeting with surgeons. And then today is actually the 3-year anniversary of when his surgery actually was.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. So, I mean, in all of the chaos and the unknowns and the what ifs, like, man, we've talked about it. Like, I'm so grateful. Like, it still sucks, but I'm so grateful that it wasn't a cancer, that he would have to do years of treatments or get like chemo sick and not be able to like be there for the kids or whatever. I was just like, man, for us to be like, you have cancer, now you don't. Like, that's kind of how it felt. And so it went by so fast. So like the process of like seeing him go through the cancer wasn't so bad as watching him recover after.
Right.
That was probably one of the most difficult things for me as not just his wife, but as his friend. Yes, he's my husband, but he's my best friend. He was in the hospital for a little over a week. I think it was like 8 days he was in the hospital for. I went and saw him every day, but I could tell he didn't really want me there. Like, just because he was, first of all, he's like high off pain meds. So it's not like he was like super aware of everything, but he was also in a like deeply, deeply depressed state. Whether that's what exactly causes that, I don't know. I don't know if it's just because a hospital is depressing. I don't know if, he could tell that he wasn't, or could feel like he wasn't capable anymore, which he is now, and he's fine. But
because to give a little context with the cancer, he had to get surgery to.
Yes, they did a pneumonectomy, which I think still sounds fake, but they removed his entire right lung just because of where the cancer was. It was growing right at the base of where the bronchial tube splits into your two lungs. It was right there. So it wasn't like it was in the bottom of the lung and they could just like take off part of the lobe or whatever. So they had to remove the entire thing. Ooh. He's in pain. He's in, these lifeless little hospital rooms. There was one time, I think it was 2 days after surgery, I was up there and I was talking with him and I'm like, well, I'm going to go grab some lunch really quick. And he's like, okay, like take your time. And so I like went down to the cafeteria, ate some lunch, called the kids just to be like, hey, how's everybody doing? And when I went back up, he just was like, I was like trying to talk with him and he just was not unresponsive, but just definitely not, I don't even know what the right word is, but he wasn't there mentally. Mm-hmm. I remember I asked him, I said, do you just want me to go? Do you just want some time? And he's like, yeah, I think I do. And that was one of the hardest moments for me because it was like, I felt like all I could do was be there for him and he didn't want that. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help him right now. I got in my car and I just screamed. I don't know if I ever told him this, but I just screamed in my car, got it all out, and just sobbed in the parking lot at the hospital because I was like, well, now I can't even drive. I can't see anything. And I just tried to recover as much as I could in that moment and try to get myself together, just let it out because now I'm alone. I'm not with him. He doesn't need to see me like this. The kids aren't here. I have this time. I can be mad. I can be frustrated. I can be scared. I can be whatever. I'm reminded though, it was the day after his surgery and I had been at the hospital with him all day and I come home and our 1.5-year-old at the time was so excited to see me. And he's like, Mama. And I was sitting at the table eating dinner and he was trying to climb up to come see me. And he lost his footing and he whacked his head on his eyeball. Like he split his eye open, like right above like his eyelid. And I was just like, are you freaking kidding me? And this poor nurse, I call the after hours pediatricians and I'm like, do I need to bring him? And they were like, yeah, just bring him in just in case. We'll clean him up and see what it looks like and see what we need to do. And I was like, okay. And we bring him in, they clean him up, and they're like, oh, it's actually like, the blood made it look a lot worse. It's not that bad. We don't need to do stitches. We don't even need to glue it. Like, he's going to be fine. And I was just like, okay. This poor nurse, she goes, but you did the right thing bringing him in. I know, like, you're okay. And I was like, ooh, and I just broke down. And her literal reaction, she was like, oh, okay. Let's have a lollipop. Everyone gets a lollipop. I was just like, nurse. I'm sorry. Like, it just like all the emotions. But yeah, it was, and then it was all the after that was the hardest, because a lot of the during had to do with it was just appointments, figuring out what it was and what we were going to do about it. So it was very matter of fact, very focused, very, bing, bing, boom.
Yeah.
Versus the aftermath of it all.
Okay. So very much you had an itinerary, and you didn't, yes. And you just held it together for your family, and
as best as I possibly could.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were moments that I'm not remembering that I wasn't totally awesome, but you do your best.
What's Mitch like after cancer?
In the beginning, it was hard. It was hard to watch because he is such a generally like capable person. He's like strong, helpful, resilient, whatever you want, like insert adjective for a man, is what he is. And he just wasn't able to do that right off the bat. So it was hard because he would try to push himself to work harder or be tougher or whatever. It would make him sick. And like, he'd be like, oh, I did too much. And I'm like, I told you to take it easy. Like, nobody thinks any less of you for taking a break. You just had a lung removed. It's not like you got stitches. Like, you were ripped open and torn apart. Like, it's okay to take a step back and take a breather. And he was just like, it was one of those things where he knew that there were going to be new limitations, but he wasn't willing to accept it until he got to that point. Once it was showing itself is when he really struggled. I remember having conversations with him of like, you've got to chill. Like, nobody expects you to be where you were at 6 months ago. Like, no one is expecting you of this. And I was like, what you're doing is hurting yourself. And and ultimately, like, I'm like, that's not fair to me. That's not fair to the kids. And it's not fair to you. Like, take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is not just like, oh, I have a cough, I have the sniffles, let me take some medicine. Taking care of yourself is knowing when to take a break. He was very against that.
Yeah, it's as a man, that's really hard to do, because even if it's, I know no one else expects that of me, we expect that of ourselves.
Exactly.
And we want to not feel weak. We want to, and Mitch was, not just an electrician, not just a tradesman, but an outdoorsman and a very active, very physical guy.
Yes.
And so those activities make it hard to breathe.
He's like, I can't breathe.
Has to take a toll. And then
absolutely,
as his wife, watching that guy, that man, have to become, I think, maybe what he would consider a lesser version physically of that. It's got to be really hard.
It got to the point I was scared for what he was doing, because I was like, I don't know if he keeps pushing himself like this, it's going to be bad eventually. Like, he can only go like this for so long before something breaks. Got to the point that I called his dad. I basically told on him. I was like, help me. I was like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know. I've said everything I can say, and it's like talking to a wall. He just can't accept it. I feel like you are the only other person that he respects enough that he would maybe listen to. Can you please talk to him and tell him to chill the F out? And he was like, ultimately, I bless my father-in-law. I love him so much. But he was like, he's like, sure, I can talk to him, but Mitchell's who he is. And there's only, so much I can do. And I was like, I know. I just feel like if somebody else talks to him besides me, so I'm not like the nagging wife that's like, don't do that. I just, I was like, if it could be anyone else, if he'll listen to anyone else, it would be you. And he's like, okay, I'll talk to him. And I don't know if he ever did. But ultimately, though, I think eventually he being Mitchell, I don't want to say accepted whatever, but yeah, I guess accepted is the right word. He accepted that I'm not going to be at the level that I was, but I can work really hard at being the best at the level I'm at now. I encouraged that at the very least, because I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, you only have one lung. You're not going to be able to, swim an Olympic pool anytime soon. But you can work on going up and down stairs multiple times, as for your job and whatnot. People they'll ask me, how is Mitchell doing? Is he doing okay? Is Mitchell okay? How's he doing after everything? And I'm like, first of all, it's been 3 years. Second of all, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. Like, he's fine for the most part. I'm like, his lung capacity is a little bit, it's not at 100%, obviously. 2 lungs is 100%. And so him with 1 lung is 58% capacity with 1 lung. And I'm like, that's pretty good for 1 lung. And it's the smaller of the 2. So things you learn about anatomy. I didn't even know they
were smaller.
I know, right? I didn't either. We learned this when it happened. Your left lung is smaller than your right lung. And that's because your heart and everything is over there. So there's room. So I'm like, your smaller lung is still at 58% capacity. So you're doing pretty good. Hiking, hunting, that kind of stuff has been a little bit harder for him, but he still goes out. He still gets it. My biggest thing is like, I don't want you to feel like you're only limited as far as you are willing to allow yourself to be limited.
Right.
Like, you can gain back the ability to do stuff. It's just going to take time.
Yeah. And with physically, I just want to get a little bit deeper where he's fine in that regards. You went back and said, he accepted I'm where I'm at. Mm-hmm. My question to you as his wife, and I'll ask him this again later himself, but as a man, sometimes that mentally can be a slippery slope, because we hold on to that I'm good so long, because there's ever those moments where we're finally, okay, this is what it is. Sometimes that can be a very positive thing, but I'm just wondering because at least in my experience, that can also swing the other way really quickly, where it can get, I'm accepting this is bad, so I'm just going to go live in the really bad for a long time.
In those moments, like when he did accept it or whatever, I tried to be as supportive as I could be. Like, I didn't try to tear him down. Like, you're not able, like, you just can't do these things, Nemo. Like, I didn't pull the Nemo card on him. I was like, well, yeah, like, go take a walk. Gonna exercise that lung, and eventually over time you might feel something different. I don't know. Just within our marriage in general, communication is such a big deal for me. It is so important to me. I get really frustrated in general when people don't talk about their issues or whatever their problem is with you or a place or something. I'm very much like, I don't know if there's a problem to fix. I can't fix a problem if I don't know there's a problem. And if I'm not addressing the problem, I don't know that the problem even exists. So you got to tell me about it. And so I very much tried to be like, okay, like, how was work today? He'd be like, I didn't do anything. All I did was like write this. And I'm like, okay, well, they didn't have that before. And it's definitely something that the company could work on. So I think you did a great job. I'm also a big advocate for therapy and stuff. I encouraged him. I was like, I think you need to talk to somebody. I'm like, I know you can talk to me, and you know you can talk to me. You can talk to me whenever you want. But it's nice to have an unbiased third party that is trained to like talk you through these things and to help you figure out mentally what you need to do to get through these things. Because what works for me might not work for you, vice versa, all the way around. And he's like, you're right. I probably do need to see a therapist. And I'm like, great. Do you want me to help you with that? I tried to make it as painless as possible, I guess. I looked into different therapists and I found someone. I was like, hey, this guy seems like someone you could talk to. Do you want me to make an appointment for you? And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And he saw him for a little while. I think he's technically still his therapist, but it's like a as needed basis. I think that helped a lot, is to be able to have just someone else to talk to about it that's not emotionally connected.
Yeah, it's really important, because as a husband and a father, and it's really hard to come home sometimes and talk to your spouse about these things, especially where you come home, you haven't had an easy day either. You got 3 kids you're taking care of, and it's you're done, right? And so that's hard as a man. It's hard for us to open up in general, but then when we come home, our natural is we just want to help you out. Getting that outside help is really important, either from a therapist or from your brotherhood, from other guys, someone that doesn't have to necessarily just be a man, but it helps to have someone that can empathize with you more.
Absolutely. We actually just had this conversation not too long ago. I didn't realize that I was doing it. He was getting after me because he's like, every time I come home, you have something negative to say. So I come home and immediately it's, oh, the kid's this, or oh, the dog this, or oh, whatever. And I'm just like, I am really sorry. I didn't realize I was doing that. I just, like, to me, I'm venting about my day. I didn't realize that it was affecting him in any way either. But that's what I'm talking about with communication. So it's like, instead of letting it build up and like barking at each other about it, it's like, hey, I've noticed this. It's not great. So it's like, I'm like, okay, like, we'll work on this, and I'll work on this, and we'll move on from here. But stereotypically, like, men's mental health and versus women's mental health or whatever. And it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, you have so many problems. Let me list mine. But that's exactly why men's mental health is so important, because women do that. Well, what was so hard about your day? Like, you went to work and you came home and I had dinner for you. So why are you having a hard time? Because this is why I'm having a hard time. And I'm guilty of that sometimes. Like, I'm like, dude, you get a 2-hour commute home. Yeah, that's a long drive. And that can be tedious. But you can turn on the radio. You can just tune out, man. I don't get that breathing room. I don't get that time. Ultimately, I'm like, and I try to say this to him a lot too, is like, I recognize that what you do, I know that what you do is hard. And I know that you know that what I do is hard, but they're different types of hard. I can't go up and down stairs, wiring hotels and houses and figuring out where light switches and outlets. I don't know that crap. I can't do that. I got dino nuggets for days. I got this down.
And sometimes that makes everything so much better.
I know, right?
But no, it's so important that you said that, because that's something that it's just that disconnect. And I think the difference is generally women, for whatever reason, are allowed to be more vocal about how they're feeling about it. And then, because he's got, and I can just say from experience, but he's got a 2-hour commute home. But on that 2-hour commute home, he's thinking about all these responsibilities he's got, and then this and this. And from your perspective, he doesn't have anyone climbing on him. He doesn't have something to pick up that someone just spit out. He doesn't have this and this to deal with. He's just living a little mini vacation, singing his songs on the radio. I so see your point of view. I
see both points. I get it.
Yeah, it's so hard to be the other person in that. Thank you for acknowledging that. Because it's a whole thing, and that's something where, as men, we're conditioned to keep that stuff to ourselves, and then when we come home, it's now we had to put all these fires out at work, and now we have to come and do it here too.
Yeah,
there's no one has it easier. No one has it. There's just different roles and different responsibilities.
Different types of hard is what I say. Yes,
it's a very, very good way to put it. And along those lines, I wanted to ask you, as far as not just in life, but specifically for your guys' experience with the cancer, what do wives or husbands need to hear from a wife's point of view that are going through something similar?
That's really hard because everybody is so different. So different personalities are going to have different ways of dealing with things. But ultimately, I think all I can say is that it's not easy, and it's not going to get easier. It's not fun. There's not going to be, you're not going to have a moment of reprieve because it's just one thing after another. My best thing that I told myself, and I would tell others if they were in any type of similar situation, is you don't have to make it through the whole thing. You just got to make it through whatever time you allow yourself. I just got to make it through the day. I just got to make it through the week. I just got to make it through the hour. I just have to, by the end of this hour, this part will be over. I just got to make it through the hour. And then the hour's up and it's like, okay, I did that. One more hour. It sounds tedious and it sounds maybe moronic, but it really is all you can do is just breathe and get through however long you can make it through at a time.
So I know that was one of the hardest times, is him actually coming home from the hospital. That seemed like probably worse than the cancer itself was the recovery, like you said. So coming home from the hospital day to day, after that, what's that like?
Well, it started with death threats almost. So the kids, both the boys, had minor colds when he was supposed to be released. I say released like he's coming out of prison, but when he's discharged. And I talked to his doctor about it. I was like, my kids are sick. They have coughs, they have these colds. And he was like, frankly, if he gets sick, he will die. Pneumonia is a death sentence for him right now. So, it might be a little cold to your kids, but because of where he's at medically, that can kill him. And I was like, cool, what do I do? I put out a little, just to my friends, was like, does anybody have an extra room away from kids and nobody's sick at home? Because Mitchell's supposed to come home from the hospital and my kids are sick and he can't come home. I had one friend that was like, he can come stay in our little room, and she's like, but I can't guarantee that my kids won't be sick. And I'm like, I don't know. And then one of my friends, she was like, let me talk to my in-laws. And I was like, that's weird, but whatever. We're desperate. Because we were also like, maybe we might just need to get a hotel room indefinitely. I don't know. And she was like, okay, I talked to my in-laws. They have a basement that's unoccupied. It would basically be his personal little area. He can be there. They don't have kids at home. They don't have grandkids at home or anything. So it'll be quiet. It'll be clean, undisturbed. He's welcome to stay for as long as he needs. And I was like, that is amazing. Like these strangers that are just like, yeah, we can help. And I took them to their house. They're like, here, it's right down here and you can stay as long as you need. Here's the bed, here's the bath, blah, blah, blah. She was so kind because I'm all emotional at the time. So I was just like, thank you so much for doing this. She goes, no crying. There's no crying. It's okay. Everything's okay. We're all good. And I was just like, okay. And he stayed there for, I think, like 3 days. And then our next door neighbor at the time, they were running like a little Airbnb out of the basement. And they were like, we just like deep cleaned and sanitized. He's welcome to stay here if he needs. And we were like, okay, like it's closer to home. We're not imposing on some strangers. These are friends that we know better. And anyway, so then he stayed at that. But while he was at that other house, the kids were in bed. I was sitting watching a show and I had just gotten up to get a snack. And when I came to sit back down, I'm like halfway sitting and all of a sudden I saw movement. And I was like, no. I just like sat quietly and watched for a minute. And lo and behold, there was a mouse in my living room. And I was like, no. No. And I called Mitchell. I'm like, what good are you if you're not even here? What's the point of a husband if he can't save me from a mouse? And I was like, poor dude's been out of the hospital for like an hour. And I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, oh, and this poor man, love of my life, and it just goes to show the person he is. He called like our neighbors and was like, I'm not home. Also, I'm lungless. And Megan's home alone with a mouse and needs help. Like this little small cavalry came with like mouse traps and different like things. And they were like, here we go. We'll set you up. Like, do you need anything else? And I'm like, thank you, you guys. You guys are awesome. I caught a mouse. But it was just one of those moments where I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like the whole purpose, the whole reason I got married was so I wouldn't have to deal with these things by myself. That was just the one night. That was insane. It was a total of, I think, a week that he was staying at various other places before he was able to come home. And I like sanitized everything because I was like, he can't die. If he dies, I'm screwed. I was like, I'm going to have to move. It was not pleasant.
That thought of him potentially not being around, what was that?
A little bit. I was like relieved that my family pushed me so hard to get a degree. I was like, at least I have something to fall back on. But I was worried because we don't have family nearby. His family's from Oregon. My family's from California. And each still live there respectively. And I was like, I can't live here on my own. Like I'm gonna need help, which means I'm gonna have to either move to California, which or I'm gonna have to move to Oregon, which also not like great sounding to me right now. Also, my mom would be ticked if I was like, my husband died, so I'm moving to Oregon to be closer to his family. She'd be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, all those different dynamics.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I was just like, I would have to move. I'd have to uproot everything. I'd have to find a job, and then I'd have to find a job that pays enough to pay for daycare for 2 kids. And then I'd have to, and then I'd have to be like, stop. Nothing's set in stone yet. We don't even know what we're dealing with yet or whatever. But so it was scary for a minute to think about the possibility Because it's a risky surgery. It's not like a appendix, gallbladder, like laparoscopic, whatever. They went through his back and like spread his ribs and took out a major organ. And so it was just like, okay. I think one of our big concerns too was like, we weren't done having kids. We were like, is that still going to be a possibility? Because he had to do radiation after surgery. All the doctors were like, well, it's targeted radiation. It's up here. It's not down there. And I'm like, yeah, but can it still like affect anything? And they were like, no, you guys should be fine. If you still want to have kids, you should be able to have kids. And we were like, okay. And we had our little girl year and a half later, something like that. It's crazy.
So all was well. I guess the only side effect was you didn't get a boy this time. I
mean, darn. If we had 3 boys, I'd be like, no, we're good.
I really like that. I have one more question for you.
Okay.
We usually end with man advice.
Man advice.
So after going through what you've gone through, not just cancer, but just in life and as a wife, what does resilience now look like to you or mean to you as a wife?
I think people think of resilience as like the ability to like persevere through anything. But I don't really see it that way. To me, resilience is how you come out on the other side. You can, get put through the ringer and then use that as an excuse to be a total a-hole. It's just like, well, I'm just tough. And it's like, well, no, you're not. You're failing at whatever life is trying to teach you or show you or whatever. Resilience is, I went through this hard thing. I came out of it. And now I choose to spend my time doing this or that to be better, to be stronger, to be healthier, like whatever you want it to be. So in our case, I would say Mitchell's resilience is shown through his ability and his willingness and his want to continue in work and be like, he knows like, I can't be up here right now. I'm here, but I can be the best I can be here. And for me, that was a dark time for us. I relied a lot on other people at that time with helping with our kids or whatever. And now I try to like pay it forward. So I show my resilience by, hey, you watched my kids like once a week for the last however long. Like I needed it. And so I can help other people when they need it. So it's how you take it through the rest of your life.
Love it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
That was awesome. Your story means so much to me and everyone listening, and it's not over necessarily. You're still dealing with the aftermath of this situation, and luckily he's cancer-free right now.
Cancer-free.
But he's still 58% lung capacity, and there's still issues and challenges. And something I want to make sure we end these podcasts with is a message we're gonna keep pushing. And a lot of the guests we have on here, frankly, we don't have the budget for the guys that are uber successful yet. But these are struggles that are still going on. These are struggles that are still active. But we show our resilience by how we come out the other side. And sometimes going out the other side is just to the next day and to the next day. And men are at war every single day. Absolutely. With different struggles, addictions, financial struggles, even cancer. And our mission here in the War for Men podcast and Ironhide is to show you that you're not alone, and that we're going to be bringing people on as much as we can to show you that you're not alone. You're not weird. It's a human shared experience that you can come out the other side of, especially with amazing supportive people like you. So Thank you very much. And that is the War for Men podcast. Like, comment, subscribe on all the platforms. And